Hello, Steve White, Trek Boy 89 for Steve Arts 89. Well, I've been doing a Star Trek marathon, a chronological marathon, and of course I had to watch Star Trek Discovery. And as I was into season 2, I remembered, I forgot about the short treks. Some of these are relevant to the actual show. Where do they fall? Where should they be? I should have actually worked out where they fit chronologically and done it that way. I forgot. So I just stopped in the middle of the season and just watched all the short treks, and I kind of thought I'd do a re-review for those as well, because that's what I'm doing, a re-review, because I found that the Discovery isn't as bad as I remember, and isn't as bad as what people say, and doesn't deserve a lot of the criticism that it does get. Some of it does, some of it does. But so far as the short treks, the intention for these is unclear. I'm not exactly sure what they thought they were doing when they were creating these. I know what people say they were, but I'm just going to focus on the actual episodes, the short treks. Now, the first one is about Tilly. She is just trying really hard to, be a good ensign, and she's out late at night in the mess hall, and she encounters an alien that has gotten on board in a cargo box, and she finds this is a 17-year-old girl who is a queen who's run away because she's afraid of her responsibility and so forth. Now, we have sort of heard this story before. She also is very important because her planet is rich in dilithium, and she's found a way to recrystallize dilithium, which of course would mean no one would have to get new dilithium. You'd just be able to recrystallize what you have. So it's kind of important. So she helps this young girl, Poe, decide to basically go back and take up her responsibilities, and they bond over ice cream, and it's a cute little short trek. I like Mary Wiseman as Tilly, and I'm not a misogynist, so I don't hate women, so I can watch an episode that focuses on women and not be all, it should be men, so I kind of enjoyed it. Okay, so the second one, which one was the second one? I'm just going to go with the ones I remember. Calypso. Now, Calypso, I think I watched them out of order, actually, for another reason. But Calypso was wonderful. And I'm a bit ashamed that I didn't give these a chance. I didn't watch them with any objectivity the first time. And I barely remember them. I just remember hating them. I hated everything that was Discovery at the time. And it's an interesting episode. It doesn't fit into the canon of the show, which was one of the criticisms of Discovery in general, that it sort of abandoned elements of its own canon, not just Star Trek canon, but its own canon. So it wasn't just that they were throwing out, our canon from, our Star Trek. It was also just saying we don't care about canon in general. The Discovery is just sitting out in the middle of space. It has a sentient computer that you assume it achieved sentience in the 1,000 years that it was basically on the ship alone, because the ship's been abandoned. It's just the ship was sent into space and told to just stay there and wait. And there's this random guy in a shuttle who's been injured, and the Discovery takes it in and heals him and starts talking. And at first he assumes the person speaking to him is a person, not the computer. But he realizes eventually it's a computer, and they sort of bond. And eventually they start sharing things, like she shares her romantic idea of, she's the computer who wants to be human, who wants to find love, who wants to have a body and be able to dance. And they watch her favourite film, which is Funny Face, which I still haven't seen. I've had it on DVD for about 15 years, and I haven't done my Audrey Hepburn movie marathon yet, because she's in it. I think it's is it Frank Sinatra? I don't know who's in it. But there's a scene where they're dancing, and she shows the guy this, and he learns how to dance, and then he actually surprises her by dancing with a visualization of her. She basically makes herself into a person and a hologram, and they dance. But he feels like he's cheating on his wife, and eventually she realizes that this can't work, and they decide, because there was a shuttle that they weren't sure if they could use for him to leave because there were problems with it, and they obviously decide to just, risk it, and he leaves on the shuttle, which they name Funny Face, and then he leaves her with the memory. So instead of watching the movie of these two characters dancing, she relives that moment of dancing with a hologram of him, and it's just a wonderful, whimsical little film, and it's just, I love every element of it. The isolation, the bonding of the two people in isolation, the sentient computer wanting to be human, and just the idea of falling in love with someone and doing things for that person. It's just a wonderful little story, and I really a bit ashamed that I didn't appreciate it when I first saw it, because I was too bitter and twisted over everything else regarding Discovery. Now, the other one, that's right, I watched them out of order because I wanted to watch The Brightest Star last, because I was going to go right into the episode with Saru's people, which is where I stopped, because when I saw the opening and realised, oh, that's right, there's a short trek about this, I need to watch that before I watch the actual episode, so that's why I stopped. So it's fairly simple. We see Saru, and there was some maybe inconsistency, but they say the reason why he's tall and lanky and can run fast is because his race was a race of prey, and the predators, they'd outrun them. But then we see in the short track and in the episode that their people are basically a docile sort of religious group of people that basically just farm kelp and don't really go anywhere, and they don't seem to get chased by anything. But there is a scene where they go out into out away from the shore, and his sister is saying, oh, I just want to run back home. And I'm like, well, maybe there are predators on the planet aside from the Baal, I can't pronounce them, who maybe hunt them. So maybe they do have that ability to run. But it's something they seem to sort of set up one story for his race and then sort of abandon it for another one. But the two are not totally inconsistent. So, yeah. But yeah, basically he finds technology, he uses it to send a message to Starfleet, and they allow him to leave, but, in order not to break the Prime Directive, he can't come back and obviously share with his people anything he learns, but they allow him to come and join Starfleet, basically, which is what he does. And Captain Georgiou was the one who argued for him to be able to be taken to Starfleet and picks him up on the shuttle. So that's a nice story as well. The Harry Mudd one, I'm forgetting what it's called, but that also didn't bother me so much. I remember the first time just hating Rainn Wilson, hating his Harry Mudd, and it is a darker, seriously, well, he's basically a sociopath. And Harry wasn't really depicted that way. But it's fairly well done, fairly well directed. Basically, we see that Harry Mudd is basically being captured by different people because there's a bounty on his head, and he keeps going through the same routine of all these people trying to talk his way out of it. And then we find out that basically Harry has been creating androids of himself, and then he's putting out that he's captured Harry Mudd, and he's selling Harry Mudds, fake Harry Mudds, to people to then take to Starfleet for a ransom. And then the last person we see taking Harry Mudd to Starship, we see they take him to a room just full of Harry Mudd androids that are just a mess. And then you see him on his basically ship full of Harry Mudds all serving him, and he's dressed in drag, pretending to be a woman bounty hunter that's selling Harry Mudds to people. And it's clever, it's interesting, it's well directed, it's well acted, it's fine. The idea that he's some sort of sociopath and actually kills people doesn't feel like the Harry Mudd from the original. He did feel like a threat, but not a deadly threat. So Still not sure about that, but the actual short film works just fine. I really should have written down what the other ones were. Okay, let's just jump straight to the two animated ones, since I can't remember if there are any others. But Dot, Ephraim and Dot. Now we know the dots are these little like worker bee drone things. Like they're basically like droids who are used to fix everything. And there's a tardigrade that encounters the Enterprise, and it's really weird because it's inconsistent where he's on the Enterprise and we see scenes from Star Trek, like Space Seed and The Naked Now, playing out in the background, but it all seems to be within the time that this tardigrade is just going through the ship and finding the engine core, which has, I guess, a nice warm space for him to plant eggs. And then apparently those eggs stay on the engine and it goes through the refit without being interrupted, which is ridiculous. And then we see him on the newer Enterprise having to rescue his babies. And when the Enterprise blows up in Star Trek 3, we see that he and his babies are sort of spread out in the wreckage field, and that the Dot that was sort of fighting with him the whole time, trying to stop him from laying the eggs and just being on the ship, actually picks up all the eggs and then they fly off together. The tardigrade flies off with the Dot. So it's kind of cute, but I'm like, what was the point of this? What was it going to be? Was it meant to be anything? Was it meant to be an actual pilot for a kids TV show or something? Or I'm not quite sure what the point of it was. What have I forgotten? That's right. Runaway was the name of the first story with Tilly and her little friend. The second one was, well, The Brightest Star was the one with Saru. The Escape Artist was the Harry Mudd one. And, that's right, the two Pike ones. That's what I was forgetting. Q&A. Now, Q&A is Spock's first day on board the Enterprise. Basically, he beams up. He's smiling. Now, this depiction of Spock is weird. It's like, because of what happened in the cage, they assumed that Spock had emotions and was emotional at that time, and he wasn't. So they sort of made him emotional and then made it like some sort of story arc or character arc where he sort of learns not to be like that. And I'm like, well, there's no way he'd be encouraged to be less human on a human ship. That's something he would have come out of Vulcan with. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. And how they're going to explain this in Strange New Worlds and leave him, because they're still acting like, Strange New Worlds are going to lead into the original series, in which case at the start of the original series, Spock is very cold and logical and preferences, being Vulcan and being unemotional over being human and being emotional. So I don't know how they explain that. But we see him basically meet up with number one. They get stuck in an elevator. They talk, they bond. She sort of says, I can see that you do have emotions, but if you want to be in command, you really should keep that in check, which doesn't make a lot of sense unless she's suggesting that people will discriminate against him for being a Vulcan for being emotional, when a human would be encouraged to be to have be in touch with their emotions to command. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But then she shares her freak, which is that she likes to sing old show tunes, and they sing a number from HMS Pinafore, and they laugh. And then they get freed from the turbo lift and, promise never to speak about it again. So I almost like it, except it does show a scene of the turbo lifts travelling through the Enterprise in the same way they travel in the Discovery, which the Discovery could be a big hollow ship full of, turbo lifts that go around on rails like a roller coaster. But they show that here in Enterprise, and we know Enterprise, although now we hear that it's actually bigger than the original because it's a different universe, so it can be bigger, it doesn't matter. But there still doesn't seem to be enough room to have the turbolifts working like that all over the ship. Maybe in a couple of areas that might be open and different, maybe. But yeah. Now the second episode is Ask Not, and this one never made sense to me in the beginning. It does work well in that it's the story of a ensign who is being tested by Pike, where he's brought in and she's under the impression that he's a prisoner and he's being left there while this I think the starbase is under attack, and she's basically watching him, and he tries to talk her into freeing him, and she doesn't fold. She holds to her training and everything, and then it's all just a test. That's fine, except at the start we see a console blow up and knock her unconscious onto the ground. I'm like, there's no way they could do that to a person, a cadet. Not only because they did not do that, but what if they injured the person? You know, like, it's not like other people are pretending being injured like the Kobayashi Maru in Star Trek 2, when they would just get up afterwards and they're all play acting. She really was knocked, off her feet, and that part doesn't work, but the rest of it does. And the character's likable. The engineering set is interesting. I didn't hate it. And I guess the last one, there's still two more. I'm not talking about Children of Mars, I'll save that for Picard. But The Trouble with Harry. Was that what it's called, The Trouble with Harry? They basically have a stupid scientist. So he's good at his science, but he's bad at people and bad at everything else. And the whole sort of crew just groans around him. They have a new captain coming over from Enterprise, taking over, and she can't manage this guy. He is an idiot. And he has the stupidest idea to turn the trebles that aren't prolific breeders into prolific breeders as a food source. And he mixes human DNA, his DNA, with the trebles, and that makes them basically born pregnant. And they literally incapacitate the ship and literally fill the ship with trebles. And those are some amazing scenes when you see just all these trebles just filling up the corridors and jumping and just rolling down the corridor, and eventually they escape in escape pods, and we see the ship, the windows are all full of trebles. Those visuals are amazing. I do love part of that, and I think people who hate this hate it because they identify with him. He's basically a dumb white guy who shouldn't be where he is, and that's something that happens a lot, that dumb white guys get promoted and get in positions they shouldn't be in because race and privilege, and I think they just didn't like seeing themselves on screen for what they are. So a lot of people just hated it because of that. But the story, because I hate people like that. They're one of the biggest problems in the world, stupidity. So I have no problem with that. I actually liked it. What I do hate is the mock treble as a treble serial at the end. I can't stand that. It's on the end, and it plays like an old video, like you see, like it's in 4:3, and there's like play, like you're literally playing on an old VCR. It's just the weirdest thing. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know who thought that was funny, but yeah, that ruined the short, because I was like, oh, that's not as bad as I remember, and then that came up like, oh god, that was bad. Now, the last one is the girl who, what was it called? The girl who made the stars. Basically, Michael Burnham being told a story by her dad because she's scared of going to sleep. And he tells a story about how this girl went out from a village into the darkness and wasn't afraid of the dark and found an alien who gifted her light that basically filled the sky with stars and illuminated her future and her people's future. And it's a nice little story. It's just, the dad telling young Michael Burnham a story. It doesn't need to be anything more than that. It's just cute. And that's it. I can't believe it's taken nearly 20 minutes to go through all those. The only other short trek is Children of Mars, but that relates to Picard. It was done sort of, it just showed these two schoolgirls dealing with the attacks on the Mars shipyards at the start of start of Picard, and what sort of part of the history that, sort of we do see unfold in Picard, and the ramifications of that, and some of the xenophobic stuff that comes from that. And when I talk about Picard, I'm going to watch, I didn't actually watch it, I'm just going from memory. I'll watch that properly then and talk about it then. But yeah, the short treks were better than I remember. I really enjoyed a couple of them. The other ones, the short treks themselves are good. It's just some of the characters and elements that don't work with Star Trek that are the issue. And again, if you view it as an alternative universe, and definitely one of many alternative timelines. I mean, how many times did the Red Angel go into the past and change the past? There's no way the timeline that we see in Strange New Worlds and Discovery and Picard is the same, untouched, consistent, intact timeline that we had in the original Star Trek, because the way time travel worked there, you repaired stuff or you didn't, and the same timeline continued on. We didn't create new ones every time something happened. That's a different form of time travel that we see in New Trek. So different universe, different time travel laws. But I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what you thought of the short treks if you haven't watched them again. I would watch them again. They are actually fun. I'm going to go.